Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our Parshah webcast. This week, we are learning the Parshah of Tetsei. Tetsei is one of the last portions of the Torah, and in it, there are many, many mitzvahs. And I'm going to focus in on a few of them today and give you an interesting perspective on what Torah is all about. We know that the Torah is called Torah's Chesed, the Torah of kindness. And one of the greatest mitzvahs in the Torah is to love your fellow as yourself. And therefore, we must, and Rabbi Akiva says, we know that Rabbi Akiva, the great sage, said that the mitzvah of love your fellow as yourself is the greatest and most important mitzvah of the Torah. Or in his words, it is the cardinal rule of the Torah. Mm-hmm. And the rest is all a commentary. Hillel said the rest is a commentary on that. So the fundamental mitzvah of the Torah is to love your fellow as yourself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Now, if that's the cardinal rule of the Torah, we know that God, when He gives us a mitzvah, it's because He does the mitzvahs. He doesn't tell us to do something that He Himself doesn't do. Amen. If He tells us to do something, it's because He's doing it. In fact, there's a allusion to that in the Tehillim, Tehillim 147. It says over there, Magid Devorov liYaakov, Chukov u'mishpotov liYisrael, which translates, he tells his words to Jacob, the nation of Jacob, the Jewish people, his statutes and his ordinances to Israel. Now the emphasis over here is his. He could have just said, he tell Magid Dvorim liYaakov, Chukim u'mishpotim liYisrael. That he speaks words to Jacob and statutes and laws to Israel. But it doesn't say that. It says his words, his laws, his statutes. Chukov, mishpatav, which means that it's the mitzvahs that he does, that's what he tells us to do. So if God in his Torah says that the mitzvah to love your fellow Jew as yourself is the cardinal rule of the Torah, that means that obviously he is the one that fulfills that first and foremost. So therefore, it's a known idea that in Torah everything has to express love. Every verse, if you read a line in the Torah and you don't find love in there, you're reading it wrong. Because every mitzvah, every word, every pasuk, every verse expresses Hashem's love to us. And if it doesn't, if you can't find it in there, then you're reading the Torah wrong. If reading the Torah leads you to be negative towards another person, then you read it wrong. It's simply put, you're reading it wrong, you're misinterpreting the words. And I know that a lot of people, when they read certain parts of the Torah, they see it as quite harsh, quite even, in their words, cruel. But obviously, it's not. It can't be. Because that would go against the whole idea of what the Torah is. The Torah is a Torah of kindness. So I want to draw your attention, based on what I just said, to one of the first commandments of this week's Torah reading. And this could be found in your Chumash, chapter 21, beginning verse 18. And I'm going to read it to you. And I want to discuss this with you and see what you think. Over here it says, if a man has a deviant and rebellious son, who steals, eats meat, and drinks wine excessively, and does not listen to his father and mother's voice, and when they reprimand him, he does not listen to them, His father and his mother should take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city, to the gates of his locality, in his locality. They should say, in other words, to take him to the elders, to the judges. They should say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is deviant and rebellious. He does not listen to our voice. He is a binger and a boozer. Drinks, he eats, he's there. All the people of his city should pelt him to death with stones, and you will eliminate the evil from among you. All Israel will hear and be afraid. This is a known mitzvah in the Torah. The Ben Seder Umeira, the son of the rebellious son. Now, many people, when they read this mitzvah, they don't know what to make of it. It sounds harsh. It is harsh. The kid is drinking excessively. He's eating excessively. It's not the worst sin in the world, right? He's a troublemaker, even if he steals. It says that he steals. We're told that it's only if he steals and he... This is a little boy. He's 12 and a half years old. This is not a big... This is a minor. In our society, he would be considered a minor. He is a minor.
Child.
Or maybe just over bar mitzvah. 13 years old. So a 13-year-old boy that eats excessively and drinks excessively, even if he steals, he shoplifts, and he goes and steals. You pelt him with death with stones. It sounds like it's a very extreme type of reaction. He didn't kill anyone, this boy. He's not guilty of murder. He's not guilty of anything, of the worst sins. He's not... He didn't worship idols. He didn't kill anyone. He's not that type of kid. He's just a troubled kid. He eats excessively, drinks, steals to eat, and he doesn't listen to his mother and father. I mean, there's a lot of details that are involved in this type of thing in order to meet the criteria for this penalty. There's a lot of things you have to. It's not so simple, but still, even if you do meet all those criteria, do you kill a kid like this? What's behind, where is the love in this mitzvah? Where is Hashem's kindness to the 13-year-old in this mitzvah? So the Talmud indeed says, according to one opinion, this never happened, it never will happen. It's not one of these mitzvahs that are there for a practical purpose. It's just there to have us learn more and receive more reward for learning Torah. But it's not there as a practical matter. It never happened. It never will happen. That's what the Talmud says, according to one opinion. But still, it didn't happen because it didn't happen. Because no one met the criteria. But if someone does meet the criteria, it's there. It's very simple. You have to do this. So where's the love? Where's the Ahavat Yisrael? Where's the love of your fellow in this mitzvah? Where does God's kindness shine in these words? So I'll share with you an insight I once heard that I think is really, really poignant, very, very important. Like in everything else, you have to understand the context. You have to understand the context. For a Western mind, living in the United States in the year 2015, this whole thing we can't read this. We don't even know we can't relate to any of this. Parents taking their kid to the court to be having pelted with stones. I mean, it's like, the whole thing is outlandish. But you should know that there was a time in history, and I have news for you today as well, in certain societies where parents killed their kids because they're troublemakers, because they're what they call today honor killing. What do they call them in the Arab countries? Honor killing?
Yeah, I think so.
Where a girl goes and violates the family and embarrasses the family, and they have her executed because of it, to bring back honor to the family, right? They call it honor killing. You know about this. In ancient history, this was very, very common. A child was a troublemaker, a real troublemaker, a big tree, there's no future for him. You see, at 12 years old, he's doing this already. I mean, that means there's no hope. There's no hope. So why not rid him? The commentators tell us an interesting insight here. Why is he guilty? He didn't even do anything yet. He stole. You don't get killed for stealing. There's nowhere in the Torah is there a death penalty for stealing. So why are we killing him? So Rashi, quoting the Talmud, says that the Torah saw into the distant future in this case and said, this is if he's doing this at 12 or 13 years old, and he comes from a very stable home. That's one of the conditions. He has to come from a very stable home, where his mother and father speak the same language to him. They're not conflicted. In other words, he's getting the upbringing that every dream child gets. He has a perfect, environment. He's not growing up in a troubled environment. If he's growing up in a troubled environment, so you can argue, take him out of that troubled environment, he'll be a good boy. He'll be different. But he's not growing up in a troubled environment. He's growing up with parents that are united in one voice. They're very, very kind to him. They bring him up in the way they should. Yet, something in him is wrong. Something deeply, essentially wrong with this kid. So why wait till he grows up and he's not only kills, but he even murders, and because that's his destiny. If he's doing this at 13, he's going to be worse when he's 20. So why wait till he's guilty? Eliminate him before he's guilty. So at least you can have Olam Haba. You can have the world to come. That's the theory here. Because if he murders later in life, he's guilty. He loses a share in the world to come as well. And when we know for sure he's going to murder this kid. So why wait till he's guilty? Take him away before he's guilty. So that's true. It says that. But still, since when do we judge people based on their future? You're not guilty till you're guilty, right? I'm not going to punish someone because I know eventually he's going to be doing something wrong. That doesn't sound like a kind attitude. So where's the love? Where's the Avat Yisrael in this mitzvah? So understanding the context, good morning, understanding the context will give us a whole different perspective on this mitzvah. So here it goes. Parents killed their children all the time, unfortunately, when they were troubled. When they were causing trouble to their parents, trouble to their society, they were bringing dishonor and shame. This was a very common thing. And even today you have that, as I mentioned earlier. God knew the truth of the matter is you have it even in our society. Well, unfortunately, parents lose it, and they're under terrible pressure. We read it in the newspapers all the time. Parents taking the life of their children. It's not a new thing. You can look it up, Google it, you'll find it. Almost every month in this country it happens. Sadly. So what the Torah is telling a Jew over here is like this. I know that you're going to have sometimes a Ben Seder Umeira, a rebellious child. It's inevitable. Not every kid is a tzatzke, is a tachshit. Not every child is a gem. Some kids are trouble. And they're nothing but trouble. And sometimes the parents feel, like I just described, that this world would be better without this child. And this family would be better without him. And he really is nothing but trouble. And he's just going to be bringing more misery and more trouble and more devastation to people around him, to the family, to society. And they feel sometimes in their own mind justifiably. And I'm not talking about crazy parents necessarily. The Torah is not addressing crazy parents. The Torah is addressing normal parents who may feel there's no hope for this child. We did everything for him. There's no negative in his life and everything is good. We provide him the best teachers, the best nutrition, the best environment, the best education, yet he's just loose. He does what he wants. So parents could sometimes, it can enter your mind, take the kid. Let him end it now before it gets worse. It's better for everyone, for society and for him or her. And that's what the parents do a lot of times. So what does the Torah tell us? That what?
Not to do it yourself, go to a judge.
You have no right to take the law into your own hands. On the nose, that's what this mitzvah is about. This mitzvah is about protecting the Ben Seder Omeira rather than pelting him to stones. This is about saving children rather than killing children, if you really get down to it. Because what you have to read here is like this. Let me read it now again to you. So you have this rebellious son who doesn't listen to his mother's voice, father's voice, and when they reprimand him, he doesn't listen to them. So what do you have to do? His father and his mother. So normally what would happen back then and even today sometimes, father and mother grab him, throw him out the window and finish, right? Or do something else to end it. What does the mitzvah tell us? His father and his mother should take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of the city. That's the first thing you have to do. You don't do nothing. No father has the right to lift his hand on his child to the point where he's damaged. Certainly not to kill him. That's what this mitzvah tells us. No one has the right to take the law into his own hands, even when it comes to his own children. If you have a problem with him, he's making you trouble, he's sleepless nights, you're having aggravation, you're crying day and night over him, bring him to the elders. Let them decide if this is a child that needs to be brought to justice or not. Don't you dare make this decision on your own. Because in those days, and today, we make decisions for our children on our own. We decide many things for our children, and we shouldn't be deciding those things. Certainly when it comes to life itself, no parent has the right to decide which child of his, if there's ever a case when his child deserves the death penalty. Never. That's what this mitzvah is telling us. This is a mitzvah that saves children from distraught parents. Bring him to the elders. Let's see what the elders have to say. And then the Gemara says, once he gets to the elders, it never happened and it never will happen. They'll never have it. They'll never kill a child. They'll just never do it. They'll always find some reason why he's not fit, doesn't fit the bill, why he doesn't fit the criteria. That's how this is to be read, this mitzvah. But when you read it without understanding behind what's the context and everything around it, it looks so cruel, it looks so harsh, it looks so ancient, it looks so archaic. Who would ever write such a thing? Who would ever believe that this is justified? Now, if indeed the child is this kind of child, so the law is the law, no question about it. But at the same time, the Talmud says it never will happen, never did happen. Because which judge is going to take a 13-year-old and kill him before he did anything wrong? So in theory, you could say maybe it's time to end his life because eventually he'll do something wrong. All that makes sense. But on a practical level, this never happened. And it never will. Because rabbis and judges will never execute such a thing. So what this really is telling us is to parents, leave your hands off your children. That's what this mitzvah is. The rabbis, the judges should do it. You get your hands and put your hands in your pocket. Don't you ever try to take matters into your own hands when it comes to your children. You may feel that it's my children. I raised them. I had them. I produced them. I'm in charge. Who's the government's going to tell me what to do with my children? The judges are going to tell me what to do with my children. No, we won't tell you what to do with your children on a daily basis. But the Torah is protecting children. This is the most This is the greatest child protective service the world has ever seen. This is the Torah. It's not the only place where you find this idea. Let me move on to the next mitzvah. So if you're here again, if you know how to read this properly, if you put on the right lenses, you read it, you see only love. It's only Ahavas Yisrael that comes through these pages, these words. Even though sometimes it looks the opposite. The Torah is so harsh, the Torah is so severe, and so on and so forth. The opposite is the truth. And that's true with every line. If you can't find the Av, the Chesed, that comes through this, you're not reading the Torah right. And I just heard yesterday, just parenthetically, I'll share with you, I was looking at a video of the Rebbe speaking at a Fabrengen in Elul of one year in the beginning of the 80s. Now, in Elul is a month, this month that we find ourselves, a time when people are more prone to do tshuva, to repent, to become a better Jew, become a better person, because the days of awe are upon us. It's a day of judgment, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. So Elul was a time where it's customary to look a little inside, to take a little bit of accounting of your deeds and your thoughts and your character traits and so on. So in the Shtetlach, in the little towns and villages, there hundreds of years ago and even till today, certainly 100 years ago, even before the war and so on, there was this thing that people would go around from town to town, great preachers, people that knew how to, great oratory, had oratory skills, and they'd go around and make gatherings in the cities. The men would come into the shul, the women would go to the gallery, to the women's section, and he would get up on the bima and deliver a fire and brimstone speech about Elul, about the coming days of awe, and he would drill it into the people. Make them feel like they're the biggest sinners so that they do tshuva. But in the process, he would really get into them and break them down. And this was a custom that became very, very popular. And these Jews that were sitting in the pews and the galleries, the women upstairs, were simpletons. They were simple Jews. They meant well. They wanted to hear a word that brought them closer to God. And they were taken advantage of in a way. Because these people would come and put sticks into, stab them with words that really hurt. You're nobodies, you're no good, you don't know how to daven, to make them feel deficient so that they do tshuva. And this goes on till today, in certain circles, where they utilize the Elul environment, where people are more vulnerable spiritually. They're waiting to hear a word of inspiration, and they want to do tshuva. This is sincerity. So these preachers come and they break them down. So in this speech that I heard, this Fabrengen, the Rebbe was very, very upset at this. He says, how dare a person come in the month of Elul? A month that is grace, a month of the 13 attributes of mercy are shining in the world, a month that the king is in the field. He's right here with us. So the Rebbe described it in his words. One day I'll show it to you. There's titles, subtitles. He says, the king, God is here with these Jews in the field, and this preacher gets in between them, right? And he stands in between God. God's trying to enjoy his closeness to his flock, to the Jewish people, his children. And he comes and stands in between them, breaks down these Jews. What kind of chutzpah? Because that's the point. If Torah brings you to see negative in another person, if you read a line in the Torah and it doesn't bring you to love another Jew, you're not reading the Torah. This is something else. If you could stand in Elul and break down another Jew and just hurt his feelings by telling him you're no good, so the Rebbe said, you want to give Musar, give yourself Musar first. Stand in front of a mirror and scream at yourself. Who made you to be? Who appointed you as a policeman for God's children? In such a way, you want to encourage a Jew, good, go right ahead. But to tell him how no good he is, tell yourself how no good you are. And once you're finished and you think that you're still able to tell them that they're no good, we'll talk about it. But before you rebuke yourself, don't rebuke anyone else. Because that's not the Torah way. The Torah way is not to rebuke someone to just hurt him. And that's what's done a lot of times. In the name of rebuke, it's a mitzvah in the Torah, you should rebuke someone if you see him doing something wrong. So in the name of that mitzvah, people utilize it to hurt another Jew. They use the Torah to hurt people. That's a terrible thing. The Torah has to be a Torah of chesed, kindness. And even when you read about a death penalty, you have to see what's really going on over here. Where's the kindness over here? This is not about a death penalty. This is about saving kids from a death penalty. That's what this mitzvah is. It's about saving kids from a death penalty. And that's how you have to read the whole Torah. Let me share with you another insight from on the same lines of reading the Torah the way you should. As I said, there's a lot in here. So over here we have an interesting mitzvah. Marriage and divorce is in this Torah portion. Marriage and divorce. What is marriage? Marriage is what? When two people forge a union
into one
and become one. So the truth is, when you think about marriage, according to the Torah's view, it's not two people become one. It's two halves become whole. We know, right? Because the neshamas, the souls were split at birth. There's one neshama that was split. One went into the female, one went into the male. And they went their own ways. And Hashem brings them together through divine providence to become one again. That's what marriage is. That's why people ask, and this may be a little controversial, but the issue of a gay marriage. If there could be such a thing, there obviously cannot be such a thing, because marriage is when two half souls come together. That could never happen between a human being and an animal. It can never happen between two human beings of the same gender. It can never happen because they don't share two half souls. It can't happen. There's no marriage can't happen in such a way. The only marriage that is legitimate and valid is with two half souls coming together. That's what marriage means. That's why marriage isn't to begin with a religious. It's a religious idea. To begin with, marriage is a religious idea, because if you think about it, why are people even getting married? Why do you have to get married? To have children. You don't need to get married to have children. Oh, we want to get married to live together. You can live together without marriage. Many people do it. There's no reason, there's no practical reason to get married. There's no reason to go through the marriage ceremony of a chuppah, with a ksuva, with the whole thing. There's no need for it. There's nothing it adds to the practical, you can do everything that married couples do without the chuppah and kiddushin. You can raise families, you can file taxes, you can go on vacations, you can do whatever you want without a chuppah and a kiddushin. Yet, everyone knows, Jews and non-Jews alike, that you have to get married. Why do you have to get married? Because marriage is a religious idea. It's only God said to get married. It comes from God. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Even before the Torah was given, people got married. But mainly once the Torah was given, did the whole formality of marriage come to being. And it's only because God said to do it. And why did God say to do it? Because of this. Because the marriage is what binds the two people together. The two souls together makes them one, meshes them into one again. So when people come and say the marriage should be this kind of marriage and that kind of marriage, and you're taking what a religious idea and turning it into an anti-religious idea. It's parenthetically. Anyway, so going back to marriage, so that's what marriage is. Marriage is not buying a house together. Marriage is only about one thing, bringing two souls together. And that's why, like I said, you can't have a marriage between people that don't share a common soul. Can't happen. What happens when you divorce? And there's a divorce in the Torah. There is a divorce. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to divorce if you have to. So does that mean you made a mistake? Does divorce mean that this marriage was a mistake to begin with?
Sin?
You think a sin? It's a sin to divorce?
Without reasons, yes.
No, I'm not talking about without reason. I'm talking about there's a reason, obviously. It's not a sin to divorce. It's one of the mitzvahs in the Torah that if you need to divorce, there is permission and a way out, as we would call it. Does that mean that the person made a mistake? Not at all. What God is saying to a married couple is like this. I know that this is your match. This is your bashert. But in a marriage, there's two planes, if you will. There's the plane of the souls, and there's the realm of the bodies. The two bodies have to get along as well, not just the two souls. So God says like this, I know that I put you together because your two souls are a match. Your souls belong to each other. Your souls belong to each other. But if in this physical world, where your two bodies also have to get along together and also have to be a match, if some reason you both cannot make that happen, your mind's not in the same place, your heart is not in the same place, you're hurting each other, you're abusing each other, you're not getting along, and it's becoming it's a destructive environment and home, especially if there's children involved or whatever it is, if it becomes impossible, Hashem says, look, this is your match. But I know that this match cannot only be a match made in heaven and stays in heaven. It has to be a match made in heaven that is able to live here on earth together. If on the earthly plane you cannot get along, you cannot live together, I'm letting you get out. That means it's up to you. If you cannot make my match work, if my soul that I put into your two bodies, if the souls are together but the bodies cannot live in peace while the souls live in peace, I'm letting you get out. It's a destructive. In other words, you're tearing the souls in half again when you divorce. It's not a mistake. People make this mistake. No, that wasn't my bashert. It's not true. It was your bashert. If not, you wouldn't have been together to begin with. And that's why the Talmud says, by the way, an interesting statement. The Talmud says that for God to make matches is as difficult as splitting the sea of reeds when the Jews went out of Egypt. Right? That's an amazing statement. What do you mean? How could that be? The Gemara right away, the Talmud asks, what does that mean? Why is it as difficult as the splitting of the sea? We know that 40 days before the child is even conceived, God already decides which souls, who belongs to who. So how hard? It was not so hard to make the match here, to make the match. It's a natural thing. These two souls belong, these two halves belong to each other. What kind of thing is this? You're saying it's as difficult as the splitting of the sea. What is the Torah, the Talmud answer? When it says that 40 days before the conception, God already made this match, that's talking about the first match, the first marriage. The difficult as the splitting of the sea is the second marriage. Why? Because what happens in the second marriage? What happens now is, let's say two people were married, and that was their basher, the two half souls, naturally those souls came together in marriage. Now they broke off, so God had to split them up again. Now you want to get married to someone else. He has to now somehow match these two souls together. That's a difficult thing. Because that's already not a natural match. The second marriage is not your bashert. Your bashert you decided you can't live with anymore. So that's split up. Now Hashem has to take some of your soul and some of your bashert and bring it into that second person and somehow tie up these souls together. That's not easy. It's not a natural one. He can do it and he does it. So it's a perfectly legitimate marriage, the second marriage. But it's hard for him. That's what the Talmud says. It's not easy. So this gives us a new perspective. It's not that that divorce means that the first marriage was a mistake, and the second marriage, finally I found my basheret. It's not true. Divorce doesn't mean you made a mistake when you got married. Divorce only means that non-mistake, that natural connection between these two half souls, God is saying, I recognize that has to trickle down to the human experience, to the earthly experience also. If you cannot make that happen, I'm giving you a license to leave. That's up to you. Again, he's kind with us. He recognizes that he can't impose. The marriage has to be our contribution as well. And if it really is impossible, now, doesn't mean you can just walk away like that, just because you decided. Which brings me to the third topic, yeah?
Yeah, a question then. If everybody marries their bashert, so how do they decide? Because they decide they need this one or they need that one.
It's a good question. So how do you know who's your bashert? You went out with 5 people. How do you know which one to choose, right? So the answer is that we believe in divine providence. How do you know which job to take? How do you know which house to buy? How do you know which job to take? Now, I'm not comparing marriage to a job, obviously.
You're all the half of
or
it.
to a house. This is a little more important than by taking a job or getting a house. But the analogy I'm drawing is, how do you take a job? You use your brain. You see what makes sense for me. How many hours a day I have to work. How much money I need. And another bunch of different things that come into the equation. And you measure the different opportunities you have. And you pick one, the one that most fits you. That's what you have to do with a shidduch. If you have someone that's interested in living in Australia, and you're not interested in living in Australia, or you have someone that comes from a certain family that you don't like, that family's nature, or you have someone that you're sitting with them and they don't inspire you, and you just have no connection, no chemistry, you know that's not your bashert. So you have to use your brain, and you have to use a mentor, a little bit of help from others, and you make the right decision. God leads you in the right direction, just like with everything else.
And pray to the Almighty.
Yes, absolutely. So that's not a very difficult thing. It's like with everything else in life. You have to use your seichel. You have to use your brain. God gave you a brain. He gave you tools with which to make the right decision. Now, don't always rely on yourself. Always have a mentor, like I spoke yesterday. Always have someone that you can call up and consult with. Don't rely on your own judgment. You're biased. You're not objective. So there's ways to make that decision. But once you made the decision, you did everything according to the right way, the Torah way. You went under the chuppah. You did it right. That's your bashert. It's not that, oh boy, I made a mistake. You never made a mistake. But God says, if your earthly reality cannot make it happen, I'm giving you a way to split it up. And it's a tragedy. Hashem says, the Talmud says that when a divorce takes place, God cries and his tears drop onto the Mizbeach.
There's consequences.
Onto the altar, and besides the consequences, it's a tragedy in heaven. God cries over the Mizbeach, the altar in the temple. It's a tragedy. It's not, thank God this disaster came to an end. It's the other way around.
Or party or something.
It's tragic that it couldn't work out. This was not a mistake. If it wasn't meant to be, God wouldn't cry. It would celebrate. Okay, this mistake is over. It's not a mistake. A bashert is real. It's two souls, the two halves that came together. That's, by the way, also why there's a natural attraction between male and female, because they're two halves that were taken away. They're always waiting to get back.
What happened with people that never get married?
They're always a half a person.
They didn't have a basher?
They did. They never went to look for it.
They found it.
They got lazy. I don't know why they didn't get married. Or sometimes if they worked hard and they still didn't find, God sometimes, I don't know, that is also not a good thing. But he is a half a soul. There's no human being that's a full soul. That's how it is.
Would you say in the case of like Yaakov, he was such a great soul that he matched up with like in multi like?
Yes, it says that Yaakov was the general soul of all the Jewish people. In his soul was encapsulated all the Jewish people's future souls, and that's why he's the father of the Jewish people, of all Jews. Avram and Yitzchak were not, because they were also fathers of other nations, right? Avram produced Yishmael and Yitzchak produced Esav. But Yaakov, it says, only the 12 tribes were all, they produced, that's the Jewish family. And he is the progenitor of the Jewish people. And therefore it says that his soul was like Adam's soul, like Adam. Adam had a general one soul that encompassed all the Jewish people. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was a general soul, and then every generation you have that general soul that is the brain of the whole people. So that's true. Now with regard to divorce, I have a few more minutes. It's an interesting, we once spoke about this, but there's an interesting Talmudic this debate. What is grounds for divorce? You ever heard this debate? There are three opinions. One opinion says that only if the wife was disloyal, she violated the marriage, went with someone else while she was married, and found such a terrible thing, that's grounds for divorce. Another opinion is that if she cooks his meals and burns them, it's grounds for divorce. Yeah, I'm not making it up. Those are the words of the Talmud. If she burns his meals, but it's intentional. If she does it intentionally, not if she made a mistake. So she's not disloyal. She's not running away with other people, but she's trying to hurt you and make your life miserable. She's burning your meals. And the third opinion you'd be shocked to hear, is that of Rabbi Akiva. That even if you found someone else more pleasing, if you found another woman that's more charming or more beautiful or whatever, you can divorce on those grounds.
But that's not in the Torah.
That's in the Talmud.
That
And they each one prove it from the verse in the Torah.
Where at?
In this verse over here, in this portion. But don't jump to conclusions yet. This is not that simple.
No, God wouldn't do that.
So that what? Yeah. So I'll share with you an insight. Yeah, don't worry. You're right. You have to find the chesed in all this, the kindness. Where's the love? Right? Where's the love in this? So the Rebbe says an interesting take on this mitzvah. So he moves away from the literal divorce and talks about a man's mission in life. Everything in life is a marriage. You came here today, this was a marriage. It's a marriage, it's a connection. You came here to hear me speak for 45 minutes. It's a connection, it's a marriage. You're here for a reason. God put you in Weston. It's a marriage between you and Weston. You have to accomplish something here in Weston. If this is the way you live, it's because God put you. It's bashert. Everything is bashert, right? Your wife is bashert, your husband is bashert, and your place of living is bashert. Why don't you live in Cleveland? Because God put you in Weston, not in Cleveland, because He has something, your soul has to accomplish something in Weston. So the question becomes, what happens if I get bored of Weston? I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move. I don't like Weston anymore. The demographics change, and there's too many of these and too many of that, and I don't like it here anymore. I'm bored. I want a new environment. Everyone needs everything. Every 10 years people need a new thing, right? You're lucky if it's every 10 years. Some people every 3 years they need a new something new. So the Torah says, wait a minute, you're divorcing your mission in life. It's not so simple. Who says you're allowed to divorce? Are you sure that the reasons you're leaving, picking up, and deserting is legitimate? So there are three opinions. When you're allowed to divorce your mission in life. When you're allowed to move. When you say, this is too difficult for me. Here, the Rebbe sent me here on a shlichus. To be a shliach here in Weston. To be an emissary of his in Weston, to represent him, and to bring Torah, to bring Yiddishkeit, to teach, to do everything we do. I'm here 20 years. Do I have the right to say I'm bored of it and I want to look for somewhere else? I want to move to Miami. There's a bigger community, or there's more opportunity. Who knows what? Do I have the right to do this? So there are three opinions. One opinion says no. The only way you're allowed to leave your mission in life is if this is destroying your relationship with God. If the place where you live is so corrupt and so matzo ba'ervas dover, you found in her, in the place you live, a gross cheating. Meaning the place cannot produce a life committed to God for you. You cannot be committed to God here. So in that case, the Torah says, pick up and leave. You can't go to a place where it means you're going to destroy your whole relationship with God. So if you found in that place an impossible situation for you as a Jew to live, you can leave. You should leave. That's one opinion. Second opinion is, even if she burns your dish, your food. And by the way, the halacha follows that opinion. That's the halacha. There are three opinions, right? One is only if she's not faithful. The other is even if she's trying to make your life miserable, she burns your food intentionally. And the third is, even if you found someone more pleasing than her. So the halacha follows the middle of the opinion. You don't have to wait till she's so unfaithful and disloyal she runs away with other men. Even if she's there to hurt you intentionally, it's grounds for divorce. In the spiritual, in this idea of divorcing your mission in life, what does it mean to burn your dish? This means that you could be a Jew here. It's not that it's a ervas dover, you mamish, you can't live as a Jew in this place. You could live as a Jew in this place. But the passion, and you may find some, it's not going to be as it is where there's it's the 2,000 other religious Jews and you die. It's just, there's when you're living in Yerushalayim, for example, right? Or wherever there's a great Jewish community and it's bustling and hustling and it's great. Everything, there's passion and the food is cooked well. Your Judaism is baked well. It's great. You have passion for Judaism. In an environment like that, people always say, I want the big community where there's 500 other Jews walking to shul, right? Over there you feel Shabbos. You're passionate about Shabbos. Everyone's doing it. You're doing it with them. There's an opinion that says that if you come to a place with your mission, you find yourself, you're able to keep Shabbos, you're able to be loyal to God, but it lacks the passion. It's burning your dish. It's not, you can't eat it properly. It's not the same anymore. It's not like Brooklyn, where you find yourself being compromised to some degree. You can walk away from it. The third opinion says no. If you like it somewhere else better, and you find that will bring you closer to God, go. So the Rebbe says like this. The halacha indeed follows the middle opinion, but he says a chassid has to go l'fnei meshuras hadin. Has to go beyond the letter of the law. Don't just walk away so fast. You're right, living in a place, you're sent here by Hashem. You're right, your food, maybe your davening won't be the same. Maybe not every day you'll have a minyan. You cook, your dish is burned. It's not the same as you would be in a place where there's 10 minyanim a day. Don't divorce your wife so fast. People need you. Maybe you didn't fulfill your mission over there yet. I know it's getting late, so I'll just finish up now. So that it puts the burden and the onus on us. It's not so simple to divorce what God's mission for you. You live in Weston, or wherever else you live, whoever is listening to this, don't pick up and run away. You have to analyze this over and over and over and over. Maybe you're still needed where you are. Maybe you can help out. Who am I? I'm not a big leader. I'm not a big chacham. I'm not a big this. I'm not a big that. How do you know, first of all? Maybe there's some purpose you serve over there. I don't have a minyan every day. And I don't have what I have to go a half hour till I go to a kosher restaurant. So first of all, who cares if you don't go to a restaurant? It's not the end of the world. Jews need you in this place. That's a more important calculation. But even if that, it's compromising me. How much is it compromising you? You're eating burnt food once in a while. Burnt Judaism? It's Judaism. It's still Judaism. But don't just say, just because I want to have a well-done Judaism, perfectly baked, right? I'm going to desert a community that might need me. So I'm going to go and get myself a wonderful, warm environment and great food, great Judaism, and I'll leave all these Jews out cold. That the Torah doesn't sanction so fast. So the laws of divorce in this Torah portion are not only when it comes to your wife and your husband. It relates to everything, as the Talmud says, and with this I conclude. Talmud says, just like God chooses for every person his wife and her husband, He chooses which house you're going to live in, how much money you're going to make, which money you're going to make. He chooses everything for you before you're even born. So don't think that, this house is not for me. Doesn't mean you can't walk away. There's a law of divorce. You can even walk away from a spouse if it can't work. If you cannot make it work in your place of life, there's divorce. But before you do it, you better make sure that you're doing the right thing. You see the kindness and everything. It's not so simple. If every line in the Torah, if you can't find the Ahavas Yisrael in every line, you're not reading Torah, you're reading something else. That's the law, that's the key over here. May we utilize the last few weeks of Elul to inspire other Jews, not to rebuke them, to help them, elevate them, and bring them closer to Hashem, closer to ourselves, so that we all are blessed with a happy and healthy new year. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Have a wonderful week.